Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, folks. Welcome to another episode of the Marketing Your Practice podcast, the podcast where I get to share the mindset and the marketing strategy to help you, the chiropractor, increase your income, your impact, and your enjoyment in practice too. In today's episode, I'm going to share with you 5 reasons why I think your CA is perfectly positioned to be a social media rock star. Now, let me go back a few steps. First of all, I want to share a conversation or part of a conversation that I was having with a chiropractor recently. And I've had many of these conversations. So in the one-on-one coaching that I do, or even in community influencer, often what comes up is chiropractors like to share their practice fantasies with me. This particular guy, we'll call him Paul, was telling me that his fantasy was that he could have somebody managing his social media marketing that really understood the brand of his practice, could articulate the voice and share the voice that their practice had, that could reach out to their community in a really authentic way, that could be building a tribe of loyal followers in their community, at the same time attracting patients in. And all this could be happening with minimal input from him and without it costing him $1 gazillion as well. Now, this is a fantasy. Now, you might be listening to this right now saying, I have exactly the same fantasy. This is a fantasy that's super common with chiropractors everywhere. Most of them, understand the importance of social media, understand the importance of marketing, but there are a number of things that get in the way of them doing it. Often it's time. So if they do have any spare time, they would rather be spending it with their family or working on other things. Sometimes it's about focus. They want to be just focusing on the things that they see as important, and that is looking after their patients. Often one of the barriers is overwhelm, tech overwhelm. Like, I can't keep up with it. What used to work yesterday is not guaranteed to be working next month. So a combination of all these things. And then finally, sometimes it's just flat out cost. Like, when I look at outsourcing this, then, it looks like it's going to cost me, because often, and we'll talk about this in a moment, social media agencies often start at around $1,000 a month, plus then there's ad spend on top of that. So often it's the cost that is a barrier that gets in the way of making this happen. I was chatting to Paul and saying, first of all, I wanted to really support his fantasy, because having somebody do that makes an enormous difference to a practice. We have to think about social media. I think firstly, we think about it in an interesting way. If you were to talk to Apple or Nike or any of the big companies that there too, they have a very wide view of social media. They're not asking the question, well, how many phones did we sell from social media last week? This is a question or a statement that I get from chiropractors all the time. They're telling me, well, I don't get any new patients from social media. 2 things: you're probably doing it wrong, because you definitely should be getting patients from social media. But second, it's more than that. Your social media, when you have it done right, supports retention. It's part of a brand building. And this idea of attribution, I want to introduce you to a term called attribution, which is, I did this and then I got this result. I ran this out in the newspaper, got 7 new patients from it. Attribution is more complicated to measure, more difficult to measure nowadays than ever, because think about when you were checking out a brand. If you wanted to buy a car, for instance, you might get online and you would have a look perhaps at the website. Maybe you're over at Ford, you're looking at the new kind of F-150s. That's what I'm doing at the moment. I love these trucks. I would go onto YouTube and I'd watch a bunch of videos there. I might check out some reviews. And then finally, if I went to make a purchase, maybe I would talk to a friend of mine about which Ford dealer they went to. Now, which of those things was important in my buying decision? All of them. All of them were. And could I say it was just from social media? No, but perhaps social media led me down another rabbit hole is what I'm after, that helped me find out more about it. So it's complicated to measure attribution, which is why, Nike is not saying, well, how many shoes did we sell from our social media last week? We need to stop investing in social media. That's a very narrow way of thinking about things. Social media. Now, I don't know whether it's going to be TikTok next month or Instagram or Facebook or YouTube. It doesn't matter. The principles of it are always the same. I'm going to introduce you to the principles of it in a moment. Just understanding these will be incredibly valuable for you. So we have to be doing it. It's not a negotiable nowadays. Any savvy chiropractor understands they need to have some kind of social presence. So once you make the decision that, yes, I need to have it, then you've got to start to work out, well, how can I pull this off? And You as the chiropractor, and often the role that we should be playing is the CEO. You as the CEO do not need to be responsible for everything inside of your business. Now, the CEO oversees all of it. They're not just abdicating it and have nothing to do with any of it. The CEO knows what's going on, is directing it, but they don't need to be the one on the ground doing all of it. That's another mistake that chiropractors make, which is why we get exhausted time-wise. I do not have the time to be doing all of this, and I agree we shouldn't be doing all of it, but we certainly should be overseeing it. Now, when I was talking to Paul about his fantasy, I said, you're closer to turning this fantasy into a reality than you might think. Even the way that you were able to articulate it to me was a really good strategy that you want, a really great outcome. And I said to him, the person that is ideally situated to deliver this is way closer than you think. In fact, they're right underneath your nose. And he kind of said, well, tell me more. I said, it's your CA. I said, your CA in most cases really understands your brand. They understand the needs, wants, fears, frustrations of our patients. Many of them really understand chiropractic and are able to bridge the conversation between the regular person and chiropractic in a way that often chiropractors really struggle with. Many of our CAs have a better understanding of social media than we do, particularly if you're my age. At 47, many of our CAs might have been younger, but even if they're not, often our CAs have a better understanding than what we do. They have the time as well. And on top of that, to employ our CAs to do these things, once they're properly trained, anywhere between 20 and 40 bucks an hour is what most CAs are being paid in around the world. So they're really cost effective. So once I kind of shared these reasons with Paul, he was like, continue to tell me more. And I shared with him 5 reasons why I think your CA is perfectly positioned. Now, the first is that we have to understand what, and I started to touch on this beforehand, but I want to formalize it under this point, is understanding really what social media is about. There is a code to social media success. I teach this in a training, but I want to give you a sneak peek of it right now. There are 3 parts of it. For social media to be successful, we need to be doing these 3 things. We need to be building relationships. It's social media. It's different from traditional media that perhaps we might have advertised in the past, whether that be on television, on radio, in the newspaper. It's very different from that. There is a social interaction that needs to happen there. And if we're not building relationships, you're missing one of the key, if not, it's the most important thing that we be doing. The second thing that we need to be doing, because we are a business and we want to stand out, we need to be solving problems and adding value. Okay, and the best way we can add value, the best way that we can show people that we can help them is by actually helping them. This is sharing content that actually helps people get a health result before they even need to come in. This differentiates your business because it shows you as being generous. And the third thing that we need to be doing is we need to be constantly making invitations, inviting people into the practice. Now think about it. When we outsource our marketing to somebody else, even whether it's because there are lots of chiropractic companies out there that will do this for you. I don't want to mention any names that understand chiropractic, but what they don't do is they don't understand your practice, because every practice has a slightly different brand. Every practice has a slightly different voice. And if your practice, along with hundreds of others, is sending out the same email, has the same blog post, and is posting the same content, how are you different? How is that helping me to build a relationship with you? Where is that component where I get to see behind the scenes of your practice? Where is that component where I get to know you and your team? It's completely missing. And this, because that part of the code is missing, you're unable to open up the lock. Your CA walks a really beautiful line where they can bridge that gap because they do understand you. They do understand the practice. They do understand the patients. They're perfectly positioned to capture that behind the scenes, whether it be just unpacking a new adjusting table, whether it be changes that are going on in the practice, whether it's sharing behind the scenes what the practice is working on. They are perfectly positioned to share authenticity about your brand and to build relationships that is almost impossible to do even when you're outsourcing to a really great marketing agency as well. So the first is your CA is perfectly positioned to do it because of that matter of authenticity and because they are able to build the relationships. The second, I touched on this beforehand, is just flat out cost. It takes our CAs about 2 hours a week, our CA, okay, it's Caitlin that manages at the moment, to manage, she's posting every day. and overseeing and coordinating the posts of our chiropractors. So our chiropractors are still involved in this. This is important. If you're going to have your CA do this, this doesn't mean that you, the chiropractor, has nothing to do with it. You still need to be the face of at least some of the content, particularly some of the content that is the problem-solving, value-adding content, although your CA can absolutely and should be able to come up with content ideas. Can you imagine that for a moment? When your CA is trained properly, they could come to you and say, Angus, what do you want the theme to be for the next 90 days? And you could say, it's all about pregnancy. And they'll go, great, I'm going to go and research what are the hottest video topics at the moment. And I'm going to come back with you for 15 or 20 different topics of what's trending on YouTube and across Google. They could come back and say, here's the top 20 headline titles. Here's what they're talking about. And here's how we could rearrange those so they authentically meet the brand of the practice. Like, that is possible. That can happen. I'll show you how that can happen. I teach my CAs how to do that. And very often when it comes to content creation, chiropractors are happy to create content, but they just don't know what to create. And so if you have an agency trying to do this for you, then understand it's going to cost you thousands of dollars a month in a retainer, or you're going to have some very generic content being going out there that's not going to separate you from anybody else. So all of that can be done in 2 hours a week. But you have to be setting time aside for your CA to do it. You can't just add this on top of their role unless they've already got plenty of spare time. You can't just expect that here's another 2 hours of work that you need to do now, or what'll happen is it won't get done and then you'll fail at another implementation. So first of all, we need to be mature enough to say, okay, I'm going to pay you for an extra 2 hours. So again, that could be anywhere between $40 and $60. But imagine that, $40 to $60 a week, and you have a world-class in-house social media rock star as well. So the first reason is all about authenticity. The second reason is all about cost. The third reason why I love a CA to be implementing and overseeing social media in a practice is because of speed of implementation and flexibility. There's an element of social media that needs to be about what's happening now. Here's what's happening in the practice today. As I mentioned before, we've got these new chiropractic tables coming in, or we're unpacking our new vitamin D. If you need vitamin D, come on in. Here's 5 reasons why vitamin D might be helpful for you. Maybe you're opening up some appointment hours. Maybe you have spots available with one of your practitioners that you don't normally have available. Behind the scenes type of content, which is such a rich source of interact and engagement with our social media audience. There too, your CA is perfectly positioned to implement this content now. Now, if you had to take that content, send it on to a social media agency, and then for it to get into the queue, then it takes sometimes days, but often weeks. And some of the other generic posting type sort of companies, there's just not room for that. Okay, they're posting all of it for you, which is fantastic. But again, it misses out on a lot of the magnificence of that social interaction as well. The fourth one is interesting in that when you give this to your CA, it will actually increase, if it's the right person, job stability and job enjoyment. Now, Carly, who we first taught this to, Carly was our office manager and had been for a number of years and was loving her job, but both Lauren and I could see that she was starting to outgrow the role and that she was wanting more and more to do because she was just one of these amazing human beings who could do multiple things at once and just excelled in all of them. And when we gave her and taught her how to manage the social media, she ended up staying at our practice at least for another 2 years. And that's changing staff and finding and hiring new staff is a pain in the bum. Like, it flat out is. And if this brings more job stability, if this means more job longevity and job enjoyment, and you can keep your CAs for longer, that's a really, really good thing. And this is something that I see that happens when people continue to expand roles. It can be one of the challenges that often happens with a CA role is it's hard for somebody to see this as a career position because it can be a limited role. But when we can allow the role to grow with our CAs, many of them feel inspired and reinvigorated into the role, and it can keep them there for a lot longer also. The fifth thing is that when we have our CA managing our social media, it's way easier to manage our CA and to be having those ongoing conversations and to measure the results of it than when we have somebody external managing this for us. Again, there's that difficulty of us having to send the email to get how are things going and then feedback back and forwards, where there's this, your CA there, hopefully you're having a regular team meeting, or maybe you're able to touch base with them each and every day. where there's that feedback back and forwards, where they can give you feedback as well, which might be, oh, Angus, can you create this sort of video for me? This is trending at the moment. And again, that you can feed that information back to them about that speed of implementation. So it matches very much dovetails into that speed of implementation. So your CA it's much more easy to delegate to your CA and not abdicate. I want to differentiate those two terms. Often when I see chiropractors outsourcing their social media, what they do is they abdicate. They take on a social media manager or one of these posting services and they outsource it and they never think about it again. They don't know whether it's working or not. They assume that it is. They see posts from the company saying, with seeing other testimonials that it worked for other people. So maybe is it working for us? So instead of delegating and keeping an eye on it, they abdicate it. They don't think about it again. And abdicating our marketing, our social media, abdicating any part of our business is a recipe for disaster and really should have warning bells going off. But if we have somebody there to delegate to that we can oversee and we can easily communicate back and forwards with, like our CA can be, it's a much better situation that you will set up a system to have this work long-term for you as well. Now, let me summarize those 5 reasons why I think your CA is perfectly positioned to be your social media manager. The first is the very fact that social media is about about building relationships. They are perfectly positioned to be able to articulate your brand and to make those connections because they understand chiropractic and they understand the patients as well and the community at wide. In terms of a cost effectiveness, you will not find a better investment of your money than investing in your CA to upskill in this area. The third is speed of implementation and flexibility for them to be able to jump on the back of what's happening now in your practice, which is a great source of content for your social media. The fourth is increased job stability and enjoyment for your staff, which decreases staff turnover, which will decrease a whole bunch of headaches that often go with us having to manage staff. And the fifth is easier to manage as well, and that is that we can much more easily just delegate and have those ongoing conversations going forwards. Now, yes, this will mean that you will need to upskill your CA. When I first trained my Carly to do this, it really took us 9 months to get her to the stage where both Lauren and I were happy to step back and have her managing the vast majority of it, full of ups and downs, full of times of us both wanting to give up and do what we often say in small businesses, which is it's just as easy if I do it myself. But I know that that's very short-term thinking, that idea it's easier to do it myself. It's much more... it's a better expansion of your time. It's better leverage of your finances and effort for you to train somebody else to do this. And the goal really should be not for them necessarily to do it as well as you, but often if they can do it 80% as well as you, this is something that we should delegate moving forwards. Now I have, this is time sensitive as well, July 11th, so a week or so from me recording this at the moment, a program called Social Media for CAs. I'm going to be teaching 20 CAs how to do all of this. Now, at the time of me recording this, almost half of those spots are gone. So I don't know how many of them will be there by the time that you're listening to this. I'm going to take them through 4 modules to show them how to be the social media rock stars for their chiropractic practices, right from the foundations of understanding even deeper that idea is what is the code for social media? What is the number one asset that we should be building for our practice? How do we find out who we should be talking to? What platform should we be on? And then how do we set our platform up the right way? And then again, to let them know in advance what are the biggest mistakes that chiropractors make with their marketing and their social media marketing. That's what Foundations Module 1 will be about. So remember, if you're wanting to do this for your staff, I'm giving you an overview of what I teach. Just do the same thing. If you're really comfortable with this is why I'm telling you this. In Module 2, it's about content creation. Now, there are 2 content buckets that we need to be sharing with our audience if we want to build relationships and at the same time build up trust, authority, and expertise. Because this is not about us just being nice people. This is also about us being nice people and telling our community how we go about actually helping them. So inside those 2 buckets, there are more than 20 different content templates that I share. When people understand the frameworks and the templates, they'll never worry about content ever again. So it's easy because we just go back and go, okay, I'm going to do a behind the scenes piece of content here, or I'm going to do share a product, and then here's how I would write the posts, here's examples that they can copy from. So you need to put together a whole bunch of content frameworks from them. including inside of that, some of the videos that you should be making are how-to and tip videos. Okay, so this is videos that help your audience get a health result. And as I said beforehand, you need to train your staff how they can come up with ideas to direct you towards, like the example I gave before about pregnancy as well. So I go through a whole bunch of different content frameworks. I teach them how to put together the bio, a very important part of your social media that explains who you are. That's a bit like the cover of a book. We only get one chance to make a first impression. The covers of our books, the cover of our social media, our bio is incredibly important for that. We need to optimize that. And then we talk about the principles of writing engaging social media posts. It's not just the images. It's not just the posts that are important. It's also the descriptions that go along with it. So I teach them and I teach my CAs how to write those also. So that's really module 2. Module 3 is all about video. In particular, we dive even deeper into these how-to sorts of videos. Interestingly, when we talk to the community and we say, listen, are you interested in seeing more social media from brands, from small businesses? They say yes. And then we say, what sort of information do you want from them? They tell us that what they want is they want how-to and tips videos. That's what they're wanting from us as chiropractors. That's what your community is saying. And so I train my CAs, first of all, how to find this information and what is the structure of a video. And there's 2 ways that these videos can be done. The CAs can outline all of this for you if you need extra help from this. And you can do all the filming yourself. I'm very comfortable with that. Our chiropractors are very comfortable with that. But there's also a way that the CA can do the introduction for you. Then you do the body of the video, and then they do the call to action, which could be just something, the video could be, if we're talking about pregnancy, for instance, and then we want to talk about pregnancy pillows, the CA could do the introduction of the video that says, in today's video, Dr. Angus is going to be talking about the right pillows that you should be using if you're pregnant. He'll talk about pillows if you're sleeping on your side and the right ones that you can use to make sure that you support not only your body, but you can support this growing baby of yours as well. Now, here's why this is important. Then she would share why it's important that you watch the video. And then she would just simply say, here's Dr. Angus. Then I would stand in front of the camera and I would have the same conversation to the camera that I have with patients all the time, which is, here's what to look for a pillow. Here's how to use them. Here's where to go and buy your pillows. If you've got any questions, ask me. Okay, so I would do that middle part, and then it would cut back to my CA at the end there, and she would have a call to action at the end that could be something as simple as like this. If you enjoyed this video, there's 3 ways that Dr. Angus can help you going forwards. If you've got any questions, ask them down beneath. If you like this video and you want to see more videos like this from Dr. Angus, then head on over to lifechiropractic.com.au. Or if you're ready for some one-on-one help with Dr. Angus, you can give the office a call on 96461414. Now, if you only had to do the middle part of the video, which is the same conversation that you're having with all of your patients, and if your CA did the introduction and the call to action, would that be easier for you? For some chiropractors, the answer is yes. And that's what I teach my CAs to do in Module 3. And inside of that too, I teach them some of the how to get the best out of the camera. There's a module in there about editing videos. There's a module in there about things like kind of light and sound and all those kind of bits and pieces as well. But that's Module 3. Then final Module 4 this is what I needed to realize with Carly in the early days of how do you get this all done? In the early days, I wanted Carly to get this done on top of her normal work, and I realized that I needed to give her 2 hours a week where she could come into the office, where she didn't have phones to answer, patients to check out, chiropractors to look after. She needed 2 uninterrupted hours. I needed to teach her how to manage her time. I needed to teach her about focus, about how to remove distractions. So we do a lot of time management stuff inside of there. And then finally, we talk about what tools do we need, from Canva to how do we schedule this? How do we automate as much of it as we possibly can? And we talk about what things we need to measure, because of course, anything that we're doing like this, we need to be measuring. What are the things that we should be measuring? What's a waste of time? So there are the 4 modules that you would need to cover with your CA if you're going to implement this inside of your practice. And you can. If you already got this working yourself, then you just need to teach them the same thing. But if you've struggled with this in the past, if you would like me to train your CA, then firstly, I would love to, okay? The results can be amazing. The possibility that exists for you in your practice here is for you to have your own in-house social media rock star, where they are building a community of people who know you, like you, and trust you, and they're doing this all in less than 2 hours a week. That opportunity exists for you. If you're interested in finding out if there's any spots left, if you head to anguspyke.com/CA, Okay, chiropractic assistant. There's no dots or anything like that too. .com/CA. In fact, I'll make sure I have that in the show notes as well. Okay. Hopefully, that's all the convincing that you need, that it's a fantastic idea to have your CA managing your social media. They are absolutely perfectly positioned to help you reach more people, have more impact, bring a bunch more enjoyment into the practice, and then also for you to increase the bottom line, make more money. That's okay there too. Your CA, when they're trained properly, will help you do all of those things, will help you save lives. Gang, that's all for this episode. As usual, thanks for all that you do. Keep saving lives. Your community so desperately needs you. See you back here next week. Bye. If you've enjoyed listening to this podcast, you have to come and check out my Community Influencer Program. It's my monthly coaching program where we take all this material and I'll work with you to help you apply it, implement it, and systemize it. The Community Influencer Group Coaching Program is designed to help you increase your practice income, impact, and enjoyment. Join me over at anguspyke.com/join. That's anguspyke.com/join. I'd love to see you there.